9 arrests, 15 years old, a theft ring targeting tourists in Waikiki, handcuffs, police stations, a mother crying at midnight, a padlock on the apartment door, eviction notices taped to walls. This is the story nobody talks about when they see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson commanding $50 million for a single movie. But everything changed one night in a Pennsylvania jail cell when he was 15 years old. One arrest that made him say, "I started caring that night." One football coach named Jody Quick, who saw something nobody else saw in an angry 6'4" teenager with a bad attitude and a worse mustache. One handshake in a classroom that transformed a troubled kid who stole winter clothes into an $800 million empire. This is how The Rock went from arrested 9 times before age 17 to becoming the highest paid actor in Hollywood. The real story of redemption. The real story of transformation. The real story of how poverty, pain, and one mother's unconditional love changed everything. You're about to witness a journey from $7 in a wallet after being cut from professional football to owning a tequila company worth $3.5 billion. From sleeping on his parents' couch in Tampa, Florida, drowning in depression, to producing films that have grossed $14.9 billion worldwide. From a teenage thief who couldn't afford to eat to a global icon who gives away millions to charity. Stay with me, because this story will show you that your worst moment can become your greatest turning point, just like it did for Dwayne Johnson that night in jail. May 2nd, 1972. Dwayne Douglas Johnson was born in Hayward, California to Rocky Johnson and Ada Maivia. His father, Rocky Johnson, was a professional wrestler who became the first black champion in WWE history, alongside Tony Atlas. His grandfather, Peter Maivia, was a wrestling legend in the 1960s and 70s, a Samoan chief, a promoter, a wrestler who commanded respect across the Pacific. Wrestling was in Dwayne's blood. It was his legacy. It was his birthright. But money wasn't. Rocky Johnson wasn't making millions in the ring back then. Professional wrestling in the 1970s and 80s didn't pay like it does today. There were no guaranteed contracts, no merchandise deals, no sponsorships, just cash payments after each match. Some nights Rocky would come home with a few $100s. Other nights barely 50. Rocky struggled to pay rent month after month. He struggled to keep food on the table for his family. He struggled to provide basic necessities. And because of that constant financial pressure, the Johnson family moved constantly. 13 different states before Dwayne turned 16. 13 different schools. 13 times Dwayne had to pack his bags. 13 times he had to say goodbye to friends. 13 times he had to start over, make new friends, learn new neighborhoods, adjust to new environments, adapt to new schools, new teachers, new bullies, new everything. By the time he was a teenager, Dwayne Johnson was angry. Deeply angry. Angry at his father for being absent so much traveling for wrestling matches. Angry at the constant moving that never let him put down roots anywhere. Angry at the poverty that followed them from California to Connecticut to Hawaii to Tennessee to Pennsylvania. Angry at watching his mother struggle. Angry at being the new kid over and over. Angry at the world for dealing him this hand. He didn't know how to process that anger, didn't know how to channel it, so it came out in violence, in theft, in rebellion, in destruction. 1986, the Johnson family moved to Hawaii, Honolulu, Waikiki, paradise to the tourists who flew in from around the world with money to spend, hell to a 14-year-old kid struggling with identity and crushing poverty. They lived in a tiny efficiency apartment. $120 a week was the rent. That's it, $120. Some weeks they could pay it. Rocky would come back from wrestling shows with enough cash. Other weeks they couldn't. Rocky was on the road. Ada was home with Dwayne trying to hold everything together with duct tape and prayers. One day in 1986, 14-year-old Dwayne Johnson came home from President William McKinley High School. He walked up to the apartment. There was a padlock on the door, brand new, shiny, mocking him. An eviction notice taped to the wall. Yellow paper, official, final. His mother Ata was standing there, crying, breaking down, tears streaming down her face. Where are we going to live? What are we going to do? How did it come to this? Dwayne stood there watching his mother fall completely apart. He felt helpless, powerless, humiliated, ashamed. He looked at that padlock and made a promise to himself. I will never feel this way again. I will never be this broke again. I will never watch my mother cry like this again. That moment became seared into his brain. It became the catalyst, the tipping point, the eviction mentality that would drive him for the next 4 decades. Every decision he made from that point forward was filtered through that memory, that padlock, that crying mother, that feeling of absolute helplessness. But instead of channeling that pain into something positive immediately, Dwayne channeled it into anger, into rebellion, into crime, into violence. He started hanging out with the wrong crowd, kids who were angry like him, kids who came from broken homes, kids who wanted fast money and didn't care about consequences, kids who felt the system had failed them. Together they formed a theft ring. Their target was simple and profitable: wealthy tourists in Waikiki, the high-end shopping district, Kalakaua Avenue, Luxury Row, Prada, Chanel, Gucci, Armani, Versace, Louis Vuitton, jewelry stores, watch stores, designer clothing stores, tourists with Rolex watches, tourists with designer handbags, tourists with thick wallets full of cash and credit cards. Dwayne and his crew would scope out the tourists during the day, look for the ones with money, the ones wearing expensive jewelry, the ones with shopping bags from high-end stores, the ones who looked like they could afford to lose a few $1,000s and barely notice. They would follow them, track their movements, wait for the right moment when they were distracted, then strike fast, stealing high-end clothes right off racks, grabbing jewelry and running, pickpocketing cash from purses and pockets. Then they would turn around and sell it for whatever they could get, 50 cents on the dollar, sometimes less. It wasn't about becoming rich. It was about survival. It was about eating that day. It was about having money in his pocket. It was about feeling like he had some control over his life, some power, some agency. 13 years old. That's when it started. 13 years old when Dwayne Johnson first got arrested. Fighting. That was the first charge. He got into a fight at school, sent a kid to the hospital, got arrested, booked, fingerprinted, photographed. His mother had to come pick him up from the police station. She was ashamed, heartbroken, devastated. But she looked at him and said, "I feel like the world will hear from you one day." Even standing in that police station, even after an arrest. She believed in him. She saw something. But Dwayne didn't see it. He was too angry, too lost, too hurt. The arrests continued. 14 years old, arrested for theft. Stealing clothes from a store, arrested for fighting again. Another kid, another hospital, another police station. 15 years old, arrested for check fraud, writing bad checks, desperate for money. Arrested for theft again, arrested for fighting again. All kinds of stupid stuff that he shouldn't have been doing. His own words years later. But he didn't stop. He kept going, kept stealing, kept fighting, kept getting in trouble. By the time he was 14, the local newspaper in Honolulu ran an article calling him a troubled teenager with a history of run-ins with police. His reputation was set. Teachers knew his name. Police knew his face. He was on a path to prison or worse. His mother Ata kept picking him up from police stations, over and over, month after month, year after year, ashamed every single time, heartbroken every single time, wondering where she went wrong, wondering why her son was so angry, wondering if he would end up dead or in prison. But every single time she picked him up, she would tell him the same thing. "I feel like the world will hear from you one day. You're going to do something great. I know it." Even when the evidence suggested otherwise, even when every sign pointed to failure, even when he was heading down a dark path, she never gave up on him. That unconditional love was planting seeds, seeds that wouldn't sprout for a few more years, seeds that sat dormant in his heart, but seeds that would eventually grow into something powerful and unstoppable. Between ages 13 and 17, Dwayne Johnson was arrested 8 or 9 times. He doesn't remember the exact number. That's how many there were. He lost count, fighting, theft, check fraud, all petty crimes, all stupid decisions born from anger and desperation, all consequences of being an angry kid with no direction and no hope. But the arrests didn't scare him. Not at first. He kept going back to the same lifestyle, the same friends, the same choices, the same cycle. Arrest, release, repeat, until one night, fall of 1987, 15 years old, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, the Johnson family had moved again. Away from Hawaii, away from the sunshine, away from the theft ring, away from the warm beaches. Pennsylvania winters are brutal, cold, freezing, below zero temperatures, snow and ice everywhere, and Dwayne didn't have warm clothes. He couldn't afford a winter coat, couldn't afford boots, couldn't afford gloves or a hat. So he did what he had been doing for years in Hawaii. He stole them, winter clothes, a coat, from a store in Bethlehem. He got caught. Store security grabbed him. Police were called. He got arrested again, handcuffs, police car, station, booking. But this time something was different. Something clicked deep inside him. Sitting in that cold jail cell in Pennsylvania, sitting alone, looking at the concrete walls, looking at his life, really looking at it for the first time, and he realized, this is not who I want to be. This is not where I want to end up. I started caring that night. Those were his exact words years later in interviews. I'll never forget it. That was the moment. That was when everything shifted. That arrest in Pennsylvania became the turning point, the inflection point, the moment everything changed. Not immediately, not overnight. Change doesn't work like that. But the seed was planted. The decision was made deep in his soul. He was done with that life, done with stealing, done with fighting, done with getting arrested, done with letting anger control him, done with hurting his mother. But knowing you want to change and actually changing are two very different things. Dwayne was still angry, still had a massive chip on his shoulder, still had no respect for authority, no respect for teachers, no respect for himself. When he enrolled at Freedom High School in Bethlehem Township, Pennsylvania, he was a massive kid, 6'4", 225 pounds of muscle, bad mustache that made him look 30, worse attitude that made teachers afraid of him. Within weeks of arriving at Freedom High School, he was suspended for 2 weeks for fighting, put another kid in the hospital. He almost got expelled. The principal wanted him gone. Teachers didn't know what to do with him. They had never seen a student like this. Students were scared of him in the hallways. Some thought he was an undercover cop because he looked so much older than everyone else. Rumors spread. He was isolated, alone, angry, no friends, no connection. Going to the weight room every day after school, lifting weights for hours, building his body, because physical strength was the only thing he felt he could control, the only thing that made sense to him. One afternoon at Freedom High School, Dwayne decided to use the teacher's lounge bathroom. Why? Because the boys' bathroom smelled like cigarette smoke and was absolutely disgusting. Toilets didn't flush. Sinks didn't work. It was a mess. So he walked into the teacher's lounge, bold as day, walked straight to the bathroom, started washing his hands. Then the door opened. A teacher walked in. His name was Jody Quick. Tough guy, no nonsense. Football coach, defensive line coach, former college player himself. He looked at Dwayne and said, "Hey, you can't be in here. Get out. Right now." Dwayne paused, looked over his shoulder, didn't say a word, just kept washing his hands slowly, then said, "Okay, I'll leave when I'm done." Jody Quick stood there, fuming, his face turning red. If looks could kill, Dwayne would have been dead right there. But Dwayne didn't back down. He just stared back, made eye contact, didn't blink. The tension was suffocating. This was a standoff. 2 alpha males, one teacher with authority, one troubled kid with anger. Nobody won that day. Dwayne finished washing his hands, walked out. Jody stood there, furious. But something happened that night. Dwayne went home to the small apartment his family was renting. And for the first time in a long time, he felt bad. He felt guilty. He had disrespected someone who didn't deserve it. He had acted like a punk, and he knew it. His mother's words echoed in his head. "I feel like the world will hear from you one day." Is this what she meant? Disrespecting teachers, getting in trouble, going nowhere. The next day, Dwayne Johnson did something he had never done before. He walked into Jody Quick's classroom before school started. His heart was pounding. He was nervous. Stuck out his hand and said, "Coach, I just want to apologize for how I acted yesterday. I'm sorry. That was wrong. I shouldn't have disrespected you." Jody Quick looked at his hand, looked at him, looked at his hand again, studied Dwayne's face, then shook it firmly. But he didn't let go. He held on tight, looked Dwayne dead in the eyes, and said, "I appreciate that, but I want you to do something for me. I want you to come out and play football for me. Come to practice today after school." Dwayne was completely caught off guard. Football. He had never played organized football before. He loved lifting weights. He loved being strong. But football, that was different. That required discipline, teamwork, commitment. But something about the way Jody said it, the way he held that handshake, the way he looked at him with belief, made Dwayne say yes. Okay, coach, I'll be there. And that yes changed absolutely everything. That handshake became the most important handshake of his entire life. Jody Quick became more than a coach. He became a father figure, a mentor, a guide, someone who believed in Dwayne when nobody else did. Someone who saw potential when everyone else saw a problem child. Someone who cared enough to get in his face and demand better. Someone who refused to give up on him. Playing football at Freedom High School transformed Dwayne Johnson completely. For the first time in his life, he had structure, real structure. Practice every day after school, weight training in the mornings, film study, game preparation, discipline, rules, consequences. A team that depended on him, a purpose beyond himself. He wasn't just lifting weights for himself anymore. He was training for something bigger, for his teammates, for his coaches, for victories on Friday nights. My thought process started to change. That's when I started thinking about goals and what I wanted to accomplish. His own words. His grades got better because he had to maintain eligibility. His attitude improved because Coach Quick demanded respect and discipline. He stopped getting arrested. The last time he was arrested was at 15, right before he met Coach Quick. After that, 0 arrests, 0 police stations, 0 handcuffs. Because he had something to focus on, something to work toward, something that made him feel like he mattered, something that gave his anger a productive outlet. By his junior year, Dwayne Johnson was starting at defensive tackle for Freedom High School. By his senior year, he was one of the top 10 defensive tackles in the entire country. College recruiters were flooding his mailbox daily. Penn State, Clemson, Florida State, UCLA, USC, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Miami. Everyone wanted him. The kid who had been arrested 9 times, the kid who stole to eat, the kid who had no direction and no hope, was now being recruited by the best football programs in America. His senior year at Freedom High School, he was named to the All-State team. He dominated opponents. His size, his speed, his strength, his aggression that used to get him arrested was now winning football games. He chose the University of Miami. The U, a powerhouse program that had just won the national championship in 1987. Miami was building a dynasty, and Dwayne wanted to be part of it. 1990. Dwayne Johnson enrolled at the University of Miami on a full athletic scholarship. Everything paid for. Tuition, room, board, books, meal plan, everything. He was living the dream. No more poverty, no more hunger, no more evictions. Playing Division I football for a national championship program, getting a world-class education, building a future, meeting people from all over the country. But it wasn't easy. Not at all. He was mostly a backup player stuck behind elite defensive linemen, future NFL stars, Warren Sapp, Russell Maryland, Cortez Kennedy, players who would go on to Pro Bowls and Hall of Fame careers. Dwayne played on special teams, got some playing time in blowouts, but never became a star, never became a household name. In 1991, the Miami Hurricanes won the national championship, beat Nebraska 39-21. Dwayne Johnson got a championship ring, a massive accomplishment, something 99% of college football players never achieve. But he knew deep down he wasn't the reason they won. He was part of the team, but not the star, and that ate at him every single day, because he had always been the biggest guy, the strongest guy, the most dominant guy. But at Miami, everyone was big, everyone was strong, everyone was dominant, everyone was fast, everyone was talented. He had to fight for every snap, every opportunity, every moment on the field. He kept working, kept grinding, kept believing his time would come. 1995. Dwayne Johnson graduated from the University of Miami with a Bachelor of General Studies degree, dual major in criminology and physiology. Ironic. Criminology. The study of crime and criminal behavior, the same crimes he had committed as a teenager. But now he understood them from an academic perspective. Now he was educated. Now he had a degree. Now he had options. But his dream was still football, professional football. He wanted to play in the NFL, make millions, prove everyone wrong. He entered the 1995 NFL draft with hopes and prayers, and went undrafted. Not a single team picked him. 32 teams, 254 picks, and nobody called his name. The rejection stung harder than any hit he had ever taken on a football field. But he didn't give up. He signed with the Calgary Stampeders of the Canadian Football League, CFL, not the NFL, but professional football nonetheless. $300 a week salary, living in a motel with other practice squad players, eating SpaghettiOs out of a can. But it was a chance to prove himself, a chance to show scouts he belonged, chance to get back to the NFL. But it didn't last. 2 months into the season, the Stampeders cut him from the team. Released, let go, told he wasn't good enough. That moment absolutely broke him, shattered him. He called his father crying, said it was over. His football career was done, his dream was dead. After being cut from Calgary in the summer of 1995, Dwayne Johnson couldn't even afford a taxi to the airport. The equipment manager, George Hopkins, had to give him a ride. He flew from Calgary to Miami to Tampa. During the flight, he pulled out his wallet to count his money. A $5 bill, a $1 bill, some change, $7 total. That's all he had in the world. $7. No job, no prospects, no plan, no hope. He moved back in with his parents in Tampa, Florida. Rocky and Ada took him in. He slept on a couch in their small apartment. 23 years old, college graduate, national champion, and sleeping on his parents' couch with $7 to his name. Depression set in hard. He didn't leave the apartment for weeks, didn't answer the phone, didn't talk to friends, just laid on that couch staring at the ceiling wondering what went wrong. He felt like a complete failure. Everything he had worked for since meeting Coach Quick, everything he had sacrificed, every weight lifted, every practice, every game, gone. Warren Sapp, his Miami teammate, was thriving in the NFL, making millions with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Dwayne was on a couch with $7. The comparison was devastating, but his father, Rocky Johnson, had an idea. Professional wrestling. Follow in his footsteps. Follow in Peter Maivia's footsteps. Make money in the ring like the Johnson and Maivia families had done for generations. Dwayne was extremely hesitant. He had always looked down on wrestling growing up, thought it was fake, thought it was beneath him, thought it wasn't a real sport. He wanted to be a real athlete, a football player, but he had no other options. No money, no job offers, no opportunities. So he said yes. And in 1996, he joined the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, now known as WWE. He started at the absolute bottom, wrestling in small gyms, high school auditoriums, flea markets, county fairs, barns, making $40 a match, $40. After taxes, maybe 30. A far cry from the millions he makes today. But he worked, grinded every single day, learned the craft from his father, learned how to cut promos, how to work the crowd, how to tell a story in the ring. He developed his persona, started as Rocky Maivia, combining his father's and grandfather's names. The crowd hated it, booed him out of buildings. Die, Rocky, die chants. It was brutal. But then he became The Rock, and everything changed. The trash talking, the eyebrow, the people's elbow, the rock bottom. If you smell what The Rock is cooking, jabroni, know your role and shut your mouth. The charisma exploded, and slowly, he became one of the biggest stars in wrestling history. The Rock wasn't just a wrestler, he was an entertainer, a showman, a performer, a trash talker who could back it up. He had charisma that couldn't be taught, presence that couldn't be faked, timing that couldn't be learned, and the fans absolutely loved him. By the late 1990s, The Rock was the face of the WWF during the Attitude Era. Main eventing WrestleMania, main eventing pay-per-views, selling out arenas around the world. Madison Square Garden, Toronto, Los Angeles, London, making millions of dollars. He had gone from $7 in his pocket to becoming one of the highest-paid wrestlers in the world. Multiple-time WWF champion, Intercontinental champion, tag team champion. He was living the dream, but he wasn't satisfied. He wanted more. He wanted Hollywood. He wanted to be an actor. He wanted to prove he could do more than wrestling. 2001. The Rock got his first major movie role, The Mummy Returns, a small role as the Scorpion King, CGI heavy, limited dialogue, but it was Hollywood, and the producers loved him. That small role led to The Scorpion King in 2002, his first leading role, his first chance to carry a movie, and for that role he was paid $5.5 million, a Guinness World Record for the highest salary for an actor's debut leading role, $5.5 million, from $7 to $5.5 million in 7 years. Hollywood had arrived, and so had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. From 2001 to 2025, Dwayne Johnson became one of the biggest movie stars on planet Earth. Fast and Furious franchise starting with Fast 5, Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, Jumanji: The Next Level, Moana voicing Maui, Hobbs and Shaw, Red Notice on Netflix, Black Adam, Red One, blockbuster after blockbuster after blockbuster. By 2024, his films had grossed over $14.9 billion worldwide. Billion with a B, not million. Billion. He was consistently named the highest-paid actor in Hollywood by Forbes magazine. Between June 2017 and June 2018, he earned $125 million in 12 months, the highest annual total for any actor at that time. In 2024, he was named the highest-paid actor again, earning $103 million, $50 million from Red One alone, $20 million from Moana 2. He wasn't just an actor anymore. He was a brand, a business, an empire, a global phenomenon. But Dwayne Johnson didn't stop at acting. He became a savvy entrepreneur. In 2012, he co-founded Seven Bucks Productions with his ex-wife and business partner, Danny Garcia, named after the $7 he had in his pocket after being cut from Calgary. The company produced massive hits: Jumanji, Red Notice, Jungle Cruise, Hobbs and Shaw, Fighting with My Family, Young Rock, the TV series about his life. By 2024, Seven Bucks Productions had generated $4.6 billion in global box office revenue, $4.6 billion from one production company. In 2020, he launched Teremana Tequila with Partners, a premium small-batch tequila. It absolutely exploded, sold 600,000 9-liter cases in its first year, unheard of for a new tequila brand. By 2023, it was moving over 1 million cases annually. The brand was valued at $3.5 billion, and Dwayne owns 30 to 40% of it. That stake alone could make him a billionaire when he eventually sells. He also co-owns the United Football League, UFL, the merger of the XFL and USFL. Serves on the board of directors of TKO Group Holdings, the parent company of both WWE and UFC. Has major partnerships with Under Armour for his Project Rock athletic line, Zoe Energy Drink, Acorns investing app, Ford Motors. He's not just an actor, he's a mogul, a businessman, an investor, a brand unto himself. As of 2025, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's net worth is estimated at $800 million. He's one of the richest actors in the entire world, one of the highest-paid entertainers on the planet consistently. He earns at least $100 million annually from films endorsements and business ventures combined. He owns multiple properties across the United States, a massive estate in Beverly Hills, a farm in Virginia with horses, properties in Florida, drives luxury cars, G-Wagons, Porsches, custom trucks, lives a life most people can only dream of seeing in movies. But he hasn't forgotten where he came from. He hasn't forgotten the eviction in Hawaii. He hasn't forgotten the 9 arrests. He hasn't forgotten the $7 in his wallet. He hasn't forgotten the nights in jail. He hasn't forgotten his mother crying at that padlocked door. Those memories drive him every single day. He uses his massive platform to help others. In 2006, he founded the Dwayne Johnson Rock Foundation, a charity that works with terminally ill children, at-risk youth, kids who remind him of himself at 13, 14, 15. He's donated millions to universities, hospitals, and relief efforts. He donated $1 million to the University of Miami in 2007 to renovate the football facilities. They renamed the locker room after him. He's bought out entire stores to give away products to families in need. He returned to the same 7-Eleven convenience store in Hawaii, where he used to steal Snickers bars as a teenager, bought every single Snickers bar in the store. gave them away for free to customers, paying back what he took as a kid decades earlier, making amends, showing gratitude, living with integrity. The transformation from troubled teenager to global superstar didn't happen overnight. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It took years, decades, massive sacrifice, iron discipline, relentless hard work. But most importantly, it took people who believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. His mother, Ada, who never gave up on him even when she was picking him up from police stations year after year. Coach Jody Quick, who saw potential when everyone else saw a problem and a future inmate. His father, Rocky, who gave him a path into wrestling when football didn't work out. And himself. The decision he made in that jail cell in Pennsylvania, fall of 1987. I started caring that night. That was the moment. That was the shift. That was when everything began to change. Everything after that moment was building on that decision. The arrests stopped completely. The anger transformed into drive and ambition. The pain became fuel for success. The eviction became motivation to never be poor again. He took every setback, every rejection, every failure, every moment of pain, and used it to push himself harder than anyone around him. He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame his father. He didn't blame poverty. He didn't blame circumstances. He took complete responsibility for his life, and he worked harder than everyone else. Today, when Dwayne Johnson talks about his past publicly, he doesn't hide it. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't pretend it didn't happen. He owns it. He shares it openly, because he knows his story can inspire others. He knows there are kids out there right now who are exactly where he was, angry, lost, making terrible decisions, getting arrested, stealing, fighting, feeling hopeless, feeling like nothing will ever change. And he wants them to know, you can change. You can turn it around. It's never too late. One decision, one moment, one person who believes in you. That's all it takes to start. The rest is up to you and your willingness to work. In 2015, he appeared on Oprah's Masterclass, told the story of Coach Jody Quick, talked about the handshake, the apology, the bathroom confrontation, the moment that changed his life forever. He got emotional on camera, tears in his eyes, because he knows if Coach Quick hadn't seen something in him, he might still be in jail today, or worse, dead. Coach Quick passed away in 2006 from esophageal cancer, at age 58, but his legacy lives on through Dwayne Johnson, and through every single kid who hears that story, and realizes someone believes in them too. In 2024, Dwayne Johnson was the Grand Marshal at the Daytona 500, one of the biggest events in motorsports. Before the race, he gave a heartfelt tribute to Coach Jody Quick in front of thousands of fans. Said, "I would not be here had it not been for Jody Quick. That's a true story. Rest in peace, Coach. I love you, brother." The crowd erupted in applause, because they understood. They understood that success isn't just about talent or luck. It's about the people who believe in you, the people who push you, the people who see potential, the people who refuse to give up on you even when you've given up on yourself. And Dwayne Johnson has spent his entire career honoring those people, honoring his mother, honoring Coach Quick, honoring his father, honoring everyone who saw potential in him when he couldn't see it in himself. That's what makes his story so incredibly powerful. It's not just rags to riches. It's redemption. It's transformation. It's proof that your past doesn't define your future unless you let it. Arrested 9 times before age 17. How The Rock's life completely changed after one night in jail. That night in Pennsylvania, fall 1987. 15 years old. Sitting in a cold cell, looking at his life. Really looking at the path he was on. And deciding, I want more than this. That decision led to everything. The apology to Coach Quick the next day. The handshake that changed his life. The football scholarship to Miami. The national championship ring. The wrestling career after football failed. The Hollywood success. The $800 million empire. The global influence. All of it traces back to that one night. One decision. One moment of absolute clarity in a jail cell. Everything changed. Not because someone came and saved him, but because he decided to save himself. And then he surrounded himself with people who would help him become the best version of himself. People like Coach Quick, people like his mother, people like his trainers, people who demanded excellence. That's the formula. That's the blueprint for transformation. Decide you want to change. Find people who believe in you. Work harder than everyone else around you. Never give up no matter how many times you fail. And use your pain as fuel instead of an excuse. From a kid stealing from tourists in Waikiki to the highest paid actor in Hollywood. From 9 arrests to 0 arrests in over 30 years. From $7 in his pocket to $800 million in net worth. From sleeping on his parents' couch drowning in depression to owning multiple mansions. From feeling completely helpless at 14 years old to becoming one of the most powerful men in entertainment. From a troubled teenager with a history of run-ins with police to a global icon who inspires hundreds of millions. That's the journey. That's the story. That's the living, breathing proof that change is possible. That redemption is real. That one night in jail can become the turning point that transforms your entire life. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is walking, talking, living proof. And he wants you to know this. If he can do it, you can too. No matter where you are right now. No matter what mistakes you've made. No matter how many times you've been arrested. No matter how many times you've been rejected. No matter how many times you've been told you're not good enough or you'll never amount to anything. You can change. You can turn it around. You can become something greater than you ever imagined. All it takes is one decision, one moment, one night. Just like The Rock had in that Pennsylvania jail cell. I started caring that night. When will your night come? When will you decide? When will you start caring about your future? The man who once stole to survive now gives away millions to charity every year. The kid who disrespected his teacher now mentors young people worldwide through social media and personal appearances. The teenager who had no respect for himself or anyone else now inspires hundreds of millions of people. That's transformation. That's real growth. That's what happens when you decide to change and commit to the work every single day. Dwayne Johnson isn't perfect. Nobody is. He's been through a public divorce, career setbacks, injuries, failures, box office bombs, public criticism. But he keeps going, keeps working, keeps growing, keeps evolving, because the eviction mentality never left him. The fear of going back to having nothing, the memory of his mother crying, the image of that padlock on the door. That's what drives him every day. Not greed, not fame, not ego, fear of ever feeling helpless again. And that fear transformed into one of the greatest success stories in entertainment history. So what do you think about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's incredible journey from arrested teenager to $800 million empire? Drop your answer in the comments below. Have you ever had a moment like his night in jail where everything clicked and you decided to change your life completely? Share your story in the comments. Let's inspire each other, because if The Rock can go from 9 arrests before age 17 to Hollywood royalty, imagine what's possible for you. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you all. And remember this, it's never too late to change. It's never too late to transform your life. It's never too late to become who you were meant to be. Just like The Rock did, starting with one night in jail, one decision, one moment, that changed absolutely everything.